I do think that there's tons and tons of money in TradFi that's going to go into Bitcoin. While I do think we could go up to 500,000 next year, right? We are definitely going up in the next 10 years. We're definitely going up probably more than 2x over the next 10 years. I just think that the mathematics suggest that the power law will continue for the next 5 years.
Fred Krueger begins by highlighting a remarkable fact about Bitcoin. The 4-year moving average of its price has never declined. This consistency underpins Bitcoin's resilience even amid short-term volatility. He draws attention to the logarithmic growth model, noting that when the logarithmic price of Bitcoin is averaged over 4 years, it forms a near-perfect straight line with an R-squared value close to 99%. Such statistical reliability, he argues, is a compelling indicator that Bitcoin's long-term trajectory is upward. Krueger explains that while short-term price fluctuations, whether Bitcoin reaches $500,000 or dips to $50,000 next year, won't break this power law, the model serves as a robust tool for long-term forecasting. Over a decade, it predicts Bitcoin's price could range between $300,000 and $2 million, a relatively narrow band given Bitcoin's historical volatility.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
If you look at the Bitcoin price and you either look at just the 4-year moving average of Bitcoin, right? That's a sort of nice gradual curve up. Never goes down, by the way, right? Never has gone down once. The 4-year average of price of Bitcoin has never gone down. And then if you look at the log price of Bitcoin, right, the log of Bitcoin price, and you average the logs over 4 years, you'll see that that's just a complete straight line, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think that the chance of us deviating from that behavior in the next 4 years is very low, right? I don't think if something fits a straight line with 99% R squared, that you're going to see that line break in 4 years, And so while I do think we could go up to 500,000 next year, right? Mm-hmm. That wouldn't necessarily in and of itself break the power law. Okay. Could we go down to 50,000 next year? Yeah, we could. Would that break the power law? No. So I think the power law doesn't tell you much about next year, right? It doesn't, because to say that we're between 50,000 and 500,000, well, yeah, duh, right? That's not saying much, right? Where the power law tells you something, it tells you something 5 years out in the future, right? And 5 years out in the future sort of says, okay, we're going to be somewhere between, let's even go 10 years. It says, we're going to be somewhere between 300,000 and 2 million 10 years from now. Well, that's actually a pretty narrow range, right? If you think about it, right? It's sort of like, yeah, it's not going to go down to 100,000. That would not be within the power law range. We are definitely going up in the next 10 years. We're definitely going up probably more than 2x over the next 10 years. Do I know that the U.S. stock market's going up 2x? No, I don't. The U.S. stock market can go down or stay the same for long periods. We've seen that, right? The NASDAQ in 2000 went up to 5,000, right? And it got back up there. It took after 2010 to go there. So there was, we didn't get there. It took another 10 years. Gold went to $1,800 an ounce in 2011. And it took until 2020, 2019 for it to get back to that kind of level, right? So assets as big as the stock market or gold can have 10-year periods in which they're basically going down and then having to go back up. But Bitcoin doesn't seem to be that. Bitcoin seems to be an asset that is growing on this, quasi-exponential rate. Not quite exponential. It's going at an exponential, but the exponential, the constant growth rate is not constant. It's decreasing, right? So that's sort of what the power law says. And whether you think it should or not, it's a mathematical fact that it has up till now, right? So I just think that the mathematics suggest that the power law will continue for the next 5 years. One thing that could significantly change the entire game would be if the U.S. actually significantly makes steps to acquire Bitcoin in its strategic reserve, right? Because I think if they did that, and let's say they actually did that next year, right? And they said, you know what, we're $36 trillion in debt. We're at 7% debt to GDP, but we're still going to go out of our way and either print money or sell gold or do something to get more Bitcoin in a strategic stockpile, right? And we're going to start going, let's say we're going to say, our target is to add 1 million Bitcoin within 4 years in this pile. Or 4 million, like, RFK Jr. said. I think if you get to something like that, right, where there's a very serious plan to accumulate Bitcoin at the sovereign U.S. level, right? If that becomes a reality, and then if that happens, we definitely have China sort of saying, well, if you're going to do that, we are too. Yeah. And then Russia would say, if you're doing that, we're going to do it too, right? It's just sort of like that movie. There was a movie with Danny DeVito, and he goes, I don't like nuclear weapons. I don't like lawyers, but if the other side has a bunch of lawyers, I need a bunch of lawyers, you know? And he goes, so lawyers are like nuclear weapons. I don't like them, but I got to have them. Yeah. And, I think that's the game theory could completely change with this, with the strategic reserve. I think that's the one thing I think that could cause things to move a lot faster than potentially we change. I do think that there's tons and tons of money in TradFi that's going to go into Bitcoin. But, TradFi is incredibly conservative and slow. So the power law is basically just sort of a measure of how slow that is, right? Yeah. It's a measure of how slow to react this enormous boatload of dollars that's sitting there, that's hundreds of trillions, right? For them to even to go to 1%, that's going to take an enormous thing, and it's not going to happen overnight.
The crux of Krueger's argument is the power law, which predicts Bitcoin's price growth over time. While it doesn't offer precise short-term forecasts, it establishes a framework for understanding Bitcoin's potential over 5, 10, or even 20 years. The power law indicates that Bitcoin is unlikely to return to previous lows, with its lower bound steadily rising. Krueger believes that adherence to this mathematical model makes Bitcoin unique among assets. It provides a level of predictability rarely seen in financial markets, offering investors a roadmap for long-term growth.
And I think the power law says, well, you're not going to get 1% overnight. You might get 1% over a 10-year period, and you're going to get a tenth of 1%, and that's going to go to maybe 0.2%, in a couple of years, and then it's going to go to 0.4%, and then 0.6, and then a full percent, and ultimately potentially multiple percent, right? But it's I don't expect that TradFi alone is going to. It's not like everybody's going to wake up and decide that they all want Bitcoin instead of S&P. These things take a long time for people's asset allocation decisions to really change. For the average portfolio, to go instead of from 60-40 to go 60 or 55, 35, 5, and then 5% for Bitcoin. It's going to take 10 years for that, for everybody to get on board with that. Why? Because people are slow. And
Yeah.
You know, people kind of create these mental models of how they should allocate their money, and we're just at the point right now where people's mental model includes that we're not at the top of a range anymore. You know, we're still at the top of the range. You know, we're still back, you know, where it was back in 2021, which was 69,000, you know. So maybe we should wait until it goes back to 50,000 or 40,000 and then buy that. So anyways, I think that's the kind of thing that, you know, that you come to that kind of conclusion that we're in this range and 70,000 is the top and maybe 20,000 is the bottom, and maybe a better time to buy might be right in the middle, like 35,000, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, from you and I are sitting there going, it's never going to get back to 35,000. It will never get there, right? But, you know, from his perspective, it's like a very highly speculative thing that doesn't really belong in, you know, an elderly person's portfolio. And if it does, maybe we should try to not appear too stupid and buy it at the all-time high. So, you know, I just think I just think that, you know, I have a lot of friends from, you know, Wall Street and stuff, and none of them own any Bitcoin. You know, they don't. They you know, I literally got a friend of mine who's, you know, managing a multi-billion-dollar high net worth operation for Merrill Lynch, and he's like, you know, I hadn't talked to him in a while, even most of this year, and he's like, "Hey, Freddie, congratulations on your Bitcoin." Because, you know, I just can't deal with the volatility. I don't know how you can. You know? The things that are driving the market right now is, you know, TradFi adoption. That's the big one, right? And the scale of TradFi adoption is, you know, it's hundreds of billions of dollars potentially, right? Potentially even trillions of dollars, right?
Fred Krueger's insights provide a compelling case for Bitcoin as a mathematically resilient and strategically vital asset. From its adherence to the power law to its potential role in sovereign reserves, Bitcoin stands apart as a unique financial instrument. While short-term volatility and TradFi hesitance remain challenges, the long-term outlook remains overwhelmingly positive. As the world grapples with economic uncertainty and shifting paradigms, Bitcoin's trajectory offers a beacon of consistency and growth. Whether through institutional adoption, sovereign accumulation, or individual investment, Bitcoin's ascent seems mathematically inevitable. Stay tuned as we continue exploring the fascinating world of cryptocurrency and its impact on global finance.
Please like and subscribe my channel.